Welcome to Relationship Mastery, a podcast for those who want to learn how to master the art of creating happy, healthy, and loving relationships. Please join me, Adey-Jones, and my co-host, Barry Selby, each Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific for a lively and informative conversation on everything to do with relationships. Welcome, everybody, for another week with Barry and me, and we're laughing about the title. Barry is laughing about the title. He can't wait to hear why this is the topic of the week. Well, actually, where it started was a couple of weeks ago. I saw there was, I don't know what it was or why, but it was a screening of that old Ryan O'Neal, Ali McGraw movie, Love Story. And the famous line was, "Love is never having to say you're sorry."
Oh, yeah.
When I watched that movie, God, it was whenever it came out in the 70s or something. And I remember when I watched it, I remember then thinking to myself, I'm not so sure I buy this. Well, 50 years later, I still don't buy it. And I will share my view, and I'm sure Barry will share his, on why I think it's very important to say sorry. And one of the classic narcissistic traits is never saying you're sorry and behaving badly and then just thinking you can just move on.
Right.
And having been in narcissistic relationships myself, I know how hurtful that is. It's almost like I've behaved really badly, I've abused you, but now I'm ready to move on. And there's no accountability, there's no saying I'm sorry. And you're expected to snap out of whatever state you're in after having, suffered from the narcissistic abuse and just act like everything is normal. And I know for me, and I know for many of my clients, that the I'm sorry, because most of us are very forgiving. I certainly am. You say I'm sorry, and it's like all done. Everything's fine. I mean, maybe I should be hung on to my resentments a little longer, but I usually wipe the slate clean. But it's necessary for me for many reasons. Number one, because it's putting a pin on the interaction, the behavior, and saying, this is something that I acknowledge is unhealthy. It's something that I'm sorry for, and I'm sorry for the impact it's had on you. And it's something that I'll try not to do again. I mean, nobody wants to spend their life going, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. It doesn't feel good. I mean, at some point, even you get, hang on a minute, if I'm saying sorry multiple times a day, I've got to look at my behavior. So it serves the purpose of accountability, self-reflection for the person that's apologizing, and acknowledging the hurt that you've maybe inflicted on somebody else, maybe consciously or unconsciously, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And for the person receiving, I'm sorry, it's a way for them to let go of any resentment and to wipe the slate clean and to move forward. So it's really important for both people in a relationship, not just for the one that's on the receiving end of it.
Yeah, because one of the things when you're saying you're sorry, it shows also the other person that you're aware that you did something wrong, which is half the battle, basically, because when you don't even know something wrong, the other person is like, whoa, 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 they're getting upset because they're not feeling like you have had the awareness and two, the corrective action, because this is what apologies really are. It's a solution generating idea. And when you do apologize, you can do something about it. The thing I was going to jump in on the other side of for a second, because it's happened recently, like several different times, where in text communication or in verbal communication, someone said they were sorry, and I just didn't get what they were sorry for, because they were apologizing for something that they thought I might have taken offense at, which I didn't. And it was like, they'd texted ahead of time to say they couldn't make a meeting with me. And then they apologized when they reached out to me. And part of me goes, you've already cleaned it up by renegotiating. We agreed upon the fact the time changed. There was no need to apologize. So as you kind of said, apologizing for no reason is going to become repetitive and wasteful. It's not really true. An apology has to have impact. It has to be valid in terms of like when you don't just apologize flippantly and just say, yeah, I'm sorry, because that's as bad as not apologizing at all. You just say, I'm sorry, almost like a throwaway. It's almost like you're telling the other person, I don't care about you, so I'm not even going to bother doing about it. The real apology is a sincere, connected sense of what's the word I'm looking for? There's a word in there somewhere. It'll come back to me. But it's a sense of basically just being, repentance is not the wrong word, it's too strong a word, but it's a sense of basically, one, being accountable, but two, being willing to make a difference and make amends, which is really what it's about. And so having that, and like you're saying, love is you're saying you're sorry, because love isn't, because that thing about love is never having to say you're sorry is absolutely a lie. I agree with you totally. Yeah, that movie. So, I mean, we talk about those movies all the time, but like, you know, like with the Jerry Maguire one, You Complete Me. Some of the most memorable romantic lines in movies are so antithetical to romance. It's ridiculous, and this is one of those.
Exactly. And there's a couple of things you said now I wanted to pick up on. Let me think. Oh, first of all, I am the world's worst for saying I'm sorry. You know, because I think we joke about it. Like you play tennis with me, and it's like, sorry, oops, well, sorry, sorry. It's like very British to keep saying I'm sorry, apologizing for everything. That's just a sort of it's actually comes out of, you know, I'm sorry if I'm not a good partner, or I'm not a good player. There is a genuineness to it, but there's probably also that it's not necessary to keep apologizing for every bad ball you hit. But at the same time, I think it's very different from an inauthentic apology. The
Right.
the the blanket. I'm sorry. Can we move on now? It's like, whoa, you know, do not say that. It's like you don't even have to expand on the I'm sorry. You can just tell the energy behind I'm sorry. There's the energy of, okay, shut up. I've said I'm sorry. Now let's move on. Or the genuine, I am sorry if what I said upset you or hurt you, or what I did upset you and hurt you. That wasn't my intention, and I have the sincerest intention to not repeat that. But as you say, we're all human. We're going to do things. I looked up that movie just to see where that line came from and why they would even sort of make that statement. And their argument was that there should be so much goodwill and trust within the relationship that it's never necessary to say sorry. And yes, you know, in an ideal world, that is the case. But, you know, the reality is a relationship is made up of goodwill and love and care and compassion. And if you keep, I look at it as a bank account, and if you keep withdrawing from that bank account without replenishing it with an acknowledgement of something that was done wrong, that's going to deplete. I don't care how great your relationship is. If you never say I'm sorry because the whole thing is, hey, we should have enough goodwill between us and trust that it's not necessary, I think that's arrogant. And I think it's short lived because you are going to run out of that goodwill and resentment will start to come in.
Right. The thing about again, I said earlier about apology, being saying you're sorry, having impact and having weight to it. It is like saying, the thing is that yeah, as British people, we do tend to say sorry for almost the most ridiculous things. Maybe that's where the Canadians got it from. I don't know. I should know who got it first. But the part of it though for me is that when we say we're sorry, it's almost like we're apologizing to ourselves more than to anybody else in that situation, because we feel like I didn't do what I thought I was going to do, and it was an error. And sometimes we say sorry to somebody else who wasn't even either one aware or even cares about the mistake in quotes that we made. And so our apology is, it's not measured. It's not even considered, because the one thing about apology is, I said earlier about, it should be something that's got impact and got weight to it. It's almost like if you want to apologize, you've already felt that there's an impact for you to make it, and so it's got consideration in that apology, so you can then move forward. I was in a text conversation last beginning of the week about something that happened on the weekend, because somebody basically bailed and didn't come back to me, and I texted something flippant back to them, like, where are you? When are you going to get back, sort of thing. And they proceeded to write this whole litany of things, not an apology, but a justification for what they did. And I responded to that justification with some clarity of what I was upset about and what triggered me. And at the end of it, I said, if I upset you, I apologize, making it conditional, because I didn't want to presume I had to apologize. But I put it at the back end because I wanted to make sure they understood where I was coming from first. So when I did apologize, I put it in the context of, like, if there was an offense taken, I apologize, because The reality was we had a difference of opinion. That was it. It wasn't like one was wrong, one was right. Just difference of opinion. And so the understanding in that conversation is apology is really for when we've erred in some way, or erred in, how we say, ERRD. We either erred or we erred in some way, and we need to clean it up. But oftentimes we have difference of opinion. We can get caught up in the game of like, well, somebody's right, somebody's wrong, so the person who's wrong has to apologize. No, not necessarily.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
difference of opinion.
And I think there's also levels of, you can have a difference of an opinion, you can have a different outlook on something. So the apology is not for that you see something differently. It's often the energy behind that exchange. If somebody has been sort of entitled and self-righteous and I'm right and you're wrong, then you're apologizing for that attitude, not for a difference of opinion. It's how it may have come across.
Right.
Yeah, the other thing I was going to say, oh my God, again, in my mind, out the other, but it was about the repetitiveness of saying sorry or being overly polite. I think you can just take it very lightly in that situation. It's cultural. It's something you grew up with. And again, yes, I think the Canadians, without a doubt, got it from us. It's sort of, overly polite and, I'm sorry, you go first. No, you go first. You go first. But, I know what it was. It was the texting. That is, oh my God, that texting is ripe for misunderstandings.
True.
It's I think that's why I think emojis are good, because you can actually emphasize the energy in which the text is meant, because sometimes things can be misconstrued in a text.
Absolutely.
And that's so often. I have a client who likes to text, and she'll like to text in between sessions sometimes, and it's like, and I remember her responding once and she took it the wrong way, and I'm like, oops, safety. I hear what this is a concern of yours, not to do with me, but to do with the situation she had. But let's address it within our session, because again, it's too easy to misconstrue the intention behind words when you don't hear the tone of somebody's voice. You can't pick up on the energy of it, and it can be misconstrued. So yeah, I tend to be careful with texting, and unless it's like really mundane stuff. But if you're talking about something important, and the same with emails, again, especially if you are upset, my suggestion is, again, so you don't have to get into that, I'm sorry, is to sit on that email for a day. If there is a tense situation and you want to put it into words rather than have a conversation, really read your emails or your texts with a fresh mind, because often you think that you're coming across in a certain way, and maybe you're a bit more pissed off than you thought you were, and it's coming through loud and clear. So
Definitely have taken to reviewing before I send, because that's definitely a key lesson. Because sending to it's too late. One thing you said about texting, though, I'm become aware of something, is that my more important conversations I have with people, where it's more than just simply a what time, what place sort of thing, I'm doing voice text now. Like I'm basically recording a voice message that goes to them either through text or through Messenger or some other app, WhatsApp, whatever it is, because the nuance of voice, because we talked it before as well, like the nuance of voice is so much more deep and powerful than just simply text on a screen. So to do a voice text, I think is one of the best ways of having healthy and received communications that lands properly, because it is easy to misconstrue, as you said, with having text, but even with or without emojis, frankly, because emojis aren't always great either to do the full spectrum what we want to say something. But a voice text generally is much more accurate to what we're trying to communicate.
And the funny thing is, a voice text is what we used to do when we'd leave a message on a phone machine for somebody. So we've really just gone back to that.
Yeah, true. It's the answering machine of the new age.
Exactly, but I agree with you. Yes, voice text is much a much better way of communication than just simply words. But going back to that, I'm sorry as well. And I mean, have you been in a relationship where your partner could never say sorry? And how did you feel being on the receiving end of that?
I'm just thinking back to any relationships I had that with. The challenge for me is there was a fear of being vulnerable that blocks the ability to apologize. It felt like, and I'm thinking back to one relationship in particular where she was she was attached to being right. Let's put it that way,
Hmm.
and that righteous attachment negated any ability to communicate being wrong or apologizing, because apologizing implies I was wrong, therefore I'm apologizing. And it was tough to be in a relationship with somebody like that because I had the flexibility and the vulnerability to be clear if I was right or wrong, and no problem either way. But she was so attached to a position, it became a deal breaker, frankly, ultimately, because it was something in the relationship where we couldn't have a real, honest, vulnerable communication with each other because it wasn't a two-way street; it was a one-way street, and it
Hmm.
sucked.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah.
Well, you
Well,
mentioned,
as I say, having been in, a couple of like narcissistic relationships where I'm sorry just isn't even in their vocabulary because again, as
right.
you, it's such a, it means I was wrong. It completely damaged the relationship. I noticed that I was always the one to say sorry first, even if I didn't feel sorry, to just get us back on some level of communication or a new footing. But I love a genuine apology when I get there. Like I was misbehaving this weekend. I was perturbed about something, and it
Mhm.
affected my mood, and I was what's the word I'll use? A little more highly strung than I usually am, and I noticed that my fuse is a little short,
Mhm.
or my quick to get upset was a little shorter than usual, and but when I had time to, I'm not saying that there wasn't a reason for me to get upset, but the degree in which I got upset was what I noticed. And I thought, wow, where is this coming from? And I realized, oh, it's coming from over here. I'm sort of hurt about this or upset about this. Usually, if I'm angry, or upset, there's always fear underneath it for me. I can completely identify right away. It's fear of the relationship, fear of the other where the other person's at, if they're behaving in a certain way. It's usually fear. So knowing that, I mean, that's so easy for me. It's like if I get angry, I'm like, what am I afraid of? Is the next question in my mind, and I know immediately, and I can pinpoint it. And so with this, when I was sort of transferring my upset over here, I was able to say, well, that was a bigger reaction than I normally would have given. What's under it? And it was this fear over here. And I was able to say, I am so sorry. I snapped. It's because of this. And it's, yes, I didn't like what you did, but it didn't warrant the level of my snapping.
Right.
And for me, it's so freeing to acknowledge and to own something. It's like lifting a weight because I don't care. Even when you're somebody that needs to be right,
Mhm.
underneath, you're wrong. So it doesn't matter how much of a front you put on of I'm right and I need to prove I'm right. You know the truth inside, and that truth will eat away at you. So if you can
Right.
just come in and say, I'm sorry, I acted badly, or I whatever. It's like lifting this mantle off yourself. It's this because again, as I said, the truth will eat away at you, and you'll always know the truth. You can't
Oh,
keep
yeah.
yourself wrong. So I just say, yeah, saying sorry is the most wonderful way to free yourself of that negative self-talk because when you know you've done something wrong and you're not acknowledging it, it's going to eat away at you, and you're going to have that negative voice inside. So free
Yeah.
yourself.
Absolutely. And to really apologize and to say I'm sorry is an indication of caring, which is really the foundational piece for love in the first place. So it's if you want to have a healthy relationship, the more you're able to care for your partner and care for yourself, which includes the ability to apologize and say you're sorry, then the more likely you are to have a healthy relationship. So absolutely, love is saying you're sorry. I should say saying you're sorry is an indication that you care. So therefore, it is an indication of love.
And it's also you care about yourself, your own integrity. That's what I'm saying about when you say sorry, you've cleaned up your own mess. You're living more in integrity with yourself. So it's a self. it's an act of self-love to own up
Absolutely. Oh,
to
yeah.
when you've done something that's out of integrity with how you would like to show up in the world and with your partner and the people that you love.
And this is another piece, we talked about this before about forgiveness, that the truth about saying you're sorry is it releases the judgment you've been carrying. Because if you've done something wrong, especially if you're a real caring person, not a narcissist, if you're a caring person who really values your relationship, if you don't apologize for something where you know you made a mistake or did something incorrect, whatever it was, you're going to carry that wound inside. So it's going to deplete your ability to love, and it's going to deplete your ability to feel love, because you'll be carrying this iceberg inside that basically is this hardened frustration of what you didn't apologize for. Because, like saying, I forgive myself for judging whatever that is when we go through that process, saying I'm sorry, it's kind of the same energy. It's that compassionate care to release the pressure of the judgment that was placed against yourself or somebody else. And it's a simple act, but profoundly useful and impactful in a relationship.
Mm-hmm. You know what, Barry? We know what that process is, so I think we should share it without because we went to USA, so we understand. So people see they go, "What? I'm sorry for what?" So it's you explain it, and I'll explain my version of it. You go first.
The way I learned it from your seminar places as well is that forgiveness is not something we do for others, we do it for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Because forgiveness is really to release and alleviate any judgments we carry inside ourselves about either ourselves or somebody else. And the way I learned from somewhere else that brought it into this place is that we basically, when something knocks us off center, we feel upset, and we can either feel shame or guilt about ourselves, or blame and resentment about somebody else. But whatever that is, there's a judgment in the middle of it that we've been using as a wedge to separate ourselves from love. And so forgiveness is a way of erasing that judgment. And I learned also, because I did it the hard way initially, is forgiveness is not a mechanical process. It does have steps to it, but it requires what I call the lubrication of compassion. Because when you basically go through the upset, the wounding, the hurt feelings, all the upset underneath that, you eventually get to a place of compassion for yourself about what's going on. You feel love and care. And when you do forgiveness without judgment at that place, the judgment just can evaporate almost immediately, because you really realize love is more important than the judgment and the separation. That's an overarching. An overview.
Yeah, and that's beautiful, and I think you articulated what I was saying about myself when I act in or have feelings of anger or hurt or upset.
Yeah.
When I can identify I'm afraid, I have so much compassion for that part of me that has fear. And
Yeah.
all I want to do is love and take care of that part of me that's afraid. And so I mean, that's exactly is what it feels like. And so therefore, from that place of love and compassion for myself, because I know it's from fear, I can come from that place to say, I'm sorry, I reacted in this way because I'm afraid. And it's a genuine, because I have compassion for the part of me that's fearful of things. I mean, it's that little girl inside me. All I want to do is love and protect and say she's safe and it's okay. And we're big enough to acknowledge that we were afraid, and we can go up and clean up. That's the other thing I wanted to say um, about saying I'm sorry. I've witnessed certain people who take the ability to say I'm sorry and say the words as permission to keep going
Oh,
ballistic,
yeah.
because I said sorry afterwards. And again, keep your own inventory. If you are constantly having to clean up after yourself and saying I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, it loses its meaning. If
Yeah.
you're exploding daily, weekly with people, with your partner, you are blowing them out of the water. You've gone, whatever expression you want to use, but that is an indication that you need to get a grip on your behavior. Because sorry is a really important thing to say, but not when it's a daily occurrence, not when it's a weekly occurrence. And I remember when I did Kabbalah, and I really want to and get this in because it's such an important. We were teaching children, and what we do is we'd say, okay, here's some salt, here's some pepper, and say, for the sake of traditional, the salt is good, the pepper's bad, and when you say things, It's like you've mixed the salt and the pepper together. Now, then they would say to the children, okay, so, you've said some good things and you've said some bad things. Well, you want to take the bad back. So let's take all the pepper out of that mixture. It's impossible to get every grain of pepper out of that mixture. And so it is be impeccable with your word. I mean, we're going to trip up. Nobody's perfect. We know that. But attempt to be impeccable with your word. Attempt to not say things that are so wounding and so damaging. Again, going back to a narcissistic relationship, I remember feeling that vase, this beautiful crystal vase of love between us, was smashed so many times with really angry, hurtful, horrible behavior and words, that each time you pick that up and you try and glue the pieces back together, it's a little less, and you end up with more glue than you do with crystal. And it's just this gunky mess of a thing. So, sorry is a wonderful thing to incorporate in your life. But again, not to be abused and not to be used as a get out of jail free card. It should be genuine, and it should have with it the intention to not repeat that behavior. I think that's really, really important to say.
Yeah, I'll say another way, which is basically apologizing is not a permission slip to do it again.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Saying I'm sorry is a get out of jail free card, meaning that you can get out of the jail of self-recrimination and self-judgment and blame. But it also means that you now, in a way, it's like I'm using jail reference for some reason. They get out of jail free cards, so now you're on parole. It's like the sense that now it's like you realize you made mistakes, you change your behavior, and now you're going to keep doing better behavior rather than keep repeating the bad behavior, whatever it is that caused the issue in the first place. And having that willingness to change, because part of the apology is willingness to change, because there's something you did one way that you're now realizing you do a different way. And that change can be transformational for everything else in your life. You just don't know yet. Absolutely. The apology is a doorway to a deeper communication. One thing about apologies, when they are authentic and heart-based, is they can take you to a deeper level of intimacy with the person you're with as well. So absolutely, love and saying you're sorry is a gift that can only transform your relationships in a much more powerful way when you're willing to do the work that goes with it.
And the other thing I just wanted to do is and we've reflected on this earlier in the show, when we say sorry for ourselves, because not every apology is going to be received. Some people, for whatever reason, don't want to accept the apology, can't accept the apology. The wound is too deep. The infraction is too deep. So they choose to move away, walk, go a different way in life. That apology in that sense is what entirely for you. And it should always be. When you apologize, it's number one for you, that you're acknowledging, you're cleaning up your side of the street. And number two is to let the other person know that you care very deeply about them, you respect them, you are sorry for any pain that you may have inflicted. But you can't force an apology on somebody. And you have to be willing to let them receive the apology or not. And your job is to, as I say, is to apologize for yourself, to clean up your side of the street. And that has to be enough sometimes. It's lovely if the person accepts your apology and you can move on and rebuild a trust and intimacy that you had, but you also have to be willing to just allow the other person to experience what they experienced in their way. And it's not their job to accept your apology, because I know a lot of people that say, I'm sorry, and they get really pissed off because the other person didn't accept their apology. And that's not what an apology is for. Is, as we say, it's ultimately for you and the health of your relationships and your communication of love with other people.
Absolutely. There you
go. Thank you again, everybody. Love chatting with you, Barry, and we will see you next week.
Take care of yourselves. We'll see you soon.
You too. Bye-bye.
We trust you enjoyed this episode and invite you to share this with your friends and loved ones. In fact, please subscribe to our Relationship Mastery podcast. That way you'll get each new episode fresh and shiny as soon as it is released. We'd love to hear from you as well. So go ahead and enter your questions and comments at relationshipmastery.show. Take good care. We will connect with you in our next episode of Relationship Mastery.